for cracking ice, eh, buds? Let me see. Allow. Maybe
Cracking
if I.
ice.
When did it make co-host? What if I make you co-host? Then allow to record local files. Look at that. Boom.
Beauty. Let's do that.
Hit it again. Just like that. Great. No.
Paul Greene, you are a magical human being. Where did
Wow.
you find that, by the way?
Right next to your name, actually, believe it or not. Like I tapped on your name above it where it says mute and then the three dots. And then right in there I could make you host, co-host, and a bunch of things. So I'm recording, you're recording. Just in case I actually hear
I'd love
you.
to co-host. I'd love to co-host something with you.
Yeah, we'd bring a third person in the middle, like, and we would
Absolutely.
that'd be fun.
Just bombard them with questions.
We could bring Erica Christensen on, and like I'll have you as a guest host, but also as a guest, and I think that'd be cool. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool. I'm trying.
But what
to
would we
set
talk
the
about?
light.
What would we talk about?
I don't know. I don't know what we talk about. You know what? Close this door. Paul Greene.
The crazy
What were we
it's a competition
we're
because
talking about?
my video
You never
with
know.
I hope that you're popular because my video with Dan, like 25,000 people watch it on YouTube, the recast of a 2.5 hour video of us just doing this. So everyone's popularity will be judged against Daniel Lissing's popularity. I'm just telling you right now.
I'm not going to compete with Dan. I mean, he's a beautiful, popular guy. I am, I've got I always say I have the older I get, I certainly have other attributes. I'm not going on my early model years. You beautiful, Paul. Look at those teeth. I like you with a beard. I really like you with a beard.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, not more than a friend, but I mean,
Good. Can you hear me like loud and clear? Good, yeah.
Do you remember when that was a thing? When liking someone more than a friend was like a thing, whereas like you like him more than a friend? It's like
what, like middle school? It was like middle school. Wait, you like him? I do remember that actually. I remember in middle school asking someone if they thought I had a nice butt. Like it was important to me that my butt was nice. Is that strange?
Uh-huh. Yes, very strange.
It is, right? Like I was concerned at like the shape of my butt.
I will tell you this, and for the listeners that don't know, and if you're recording and planning on publicizing this, you probably have the nicest butt I think I've ever seen in a male. I don't know anyone that would disagree with me, and I can say that as a straight male that you have a great butt and also great legs. So if you were concerned about it in middle school, you certainly should not be concerned about it now.
Now, are you saying this as a friend or more than a friend?
No, I'm saying this now more than a friend.
Well, let's just get started. I think we've already started. My lovely guest today on The Grass is Greener is the one and only Italian stallion Antonio Cupo. And I'm so excited because Antonio and I have quite a history of, it may go back all the way to Italy as far as we know, which we'll get into. But Antonio is a producer, a writer, an actor, a musician, right? Because you did 140 like Broadway shows of that show. We got to get into that. I had no idea you did that. I researched a little bit.
You could just call me and ask me, Paul.
I'll call you and ask you, tell me your bio. No.
Quit Google searching me, would you? No, just kidding.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It was a Yahoo search, so it only brought up like 2 things.
Yeah, very limited things.
It said you're Italian and you did Broadway. But I can't wait to get into all that stuff with you. So you're a restaurateur in the sense and a phenomenal chef. I remember coming to your restaurant in Vancouver, and to this day, it's one of my favorite Italian meals, buddy, that we had. So there's so much to Antonio Cupo and what makes you who you are. And you were immediately one of the guests that my fans were like, you have to have Antonio on. And I know because you're a father and you always have your hands in so many different things that might be tough, but thanks for being here, man.
Oh my gosh. It's, this, as you can attest, did not take longer than 3 minutes to organize. It was like, hey, do you want to be in the podcast? I'm like, yeah, how about tomorrow? I'm always down for a really great conversation. However, my time for podcasting is specific. It's like 1:30 is a great time to start, or about then till about 3, because it's kind of in between one child going to bed and the other one coming home from school. So no, it's great to be here. Thank you for choosing me.
It was easy to
That's
choose you. You chose yourself, Antonio.
that was actually from a children's book that I read to my child last night, and it's something that you say to your child. Thank you for choosing us, because I guess the writer, and I certainly feel that that in a way, we are kind of, they do choose us. They're in the moon, wherever they are, and we're lucky to have the little buggers, aren't we?
It's a nice perspective when things get heated or you start lose your temper. You're like, this kid chose me, so I better be up to the job. I do love that. I've heard that many times before.
Yeah.
I would choose you as a parent, and Antonio. I'm like more than a friend, like a parent.
I will tell you this, if I were your father, I would dedicate a lot of time to you. And that's not because you're on the wrong track. I'm just saying it's because you have a very addictive personality. It's fun to be around you. And I'm not
Oh,
saying that as like a thing where it's like, I got to make you feel good. You're more than confident, as we all know. But it actually, there is a certain energy that certain people carry, and it's rare to find. I will say it's rare to find that you kind of just want to be around them, you know. And I don't know if it's because it's kind of like this, energy is kind of one of those things where it just sort of transmits, and it makes you feel good, and you don't know why. It's just, you're just feeling good, and you're hanging out with Paul Greene.
well, I could easily say the same to you. I remember Joanne, a mutual friend of ours, was like, Paul, you are one of my favorite people, and I can't wait for you to meet Antonio, because he's one of my favorite people. And then
Uh-huh.
then we got to do a film together, which is kind of how we met. I mean, we're not sure if we met in Milan 20 years ago, which we'll get into that, but we did first meet on the set of Anything for Love, which is a Hallmark picture. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, yeah, we met. No, actually, we didn't. Okay, so this is something that no one knows, and I bet you don't even know this either. But I was jogging my memory time when we were both at an audition together. We had flown up on the same plane from LA to do a mix and match in Toronto, and the show was a show that you ended up shooting for several
Bitten,
years.
bitten.
Was Bitten?
Wait a
Yes,
minute. You were. Oh my gosh.
we were auditioning for the same character.
I
Okay.
remember you now on the audition day.
Yes,
But I
yes,
didn't know you. I was like, oh, this
yes,
is a Latin guy. Oh my goodness, you were in the audition room.
yes.
I
I was
actually
there with you. It was between you and me.
and my buddy Johan and the guy who got it, Grayson Holt. So
Wait, I thought you got the role.
no, I got
We were
Philip.
going,
I got
we
Philip.
were going for the father role, the one that's not the werewolf.
Right, the boyfriend to
The
Elena.
boyfriend. That's the role that I was going for.
Philip. But then
Philip.
also in our testing room, right after us was the guys who were playing the main wolf, and my best friend Johan also flew out.
Johann
To,
Herb. I remember he flew
right,
out. That's right. He flew on the same plane as you, except you
and
were sitting in first class.
and you were there. It is totally coming. Like we didn't really. We're both in our heads, trying to get this stinking role.
I
So
didn't know you from
no,
anybody. Yeah.
but I
I mean, I
remember.
knew who you were because, I know Paul Greene is infamous.
Ooh, did you have to take your shirt off in that audition? I did.
No, that wasn't the prerequisite.
Honestly, we had to take our shirts off and like for the shower scene.
Paul, people ask you to take your shirt off often. They're generally asking me to keep my shirt on,
that
and
is that
I'm
is
like, hey, maybe
not
I should take my
true.
shirt off here.
That is not true. I have seen your early male modeling pictures. But you know what? Let's take us back, Antonio. I
Gosh.
really what I want is my listeners to know how it all started for you, how you began this career that you're in now, and just early life, like where you were born. I know you're fluent in Italian. You were born in Vancouver, though, right? But your family's Italian. So just take us back to the very little baby bambino, incredibile, bellissima Antonio Cupo. See?
Well, let's see, where do I begin? Um, yeah. So, well, I mean, my background is Italian and Latin. I've got Latin roots, my mother's side. So that kind of put me on, that I learned as I was growing up. And of course, the food was always amazing. And it was very interesting to be part of a culturally diverse background. But I remember, very specifically going to school, and I'll just give you a little bit of my hair here, so it looks like I actually have some. I remember going to while I was
Your
going to.
hair's looking good, actually. Like
It got
thick
cut
and
yesterday on set.
full and Italian.
Uh, so it,
Continue.
um, so I remember having this name Antonio, and my friends were Scott and Brad and Joe and Eric, and I'm just like, why do I have to have the messed up name? You know what I mean? And I didn't really understand what it was, why I had to be kind of different, and it was kind of tough to blend in, So you kind of just make a decision early, how you're going to take that. And I was like, well, it's nothing I can change really. So, one of the downsides of having a name that's so cultural is that when people speak of you, everyone knows they're talking about you. You know what I mean? It's just like
Right.
that guy, with the name. Um, of course, Antonio is a very, very common name in South America and Spain and Italy, other Latin places. But here in Canada, which is where I was born and raised, it was just a little strange, But that was little me, and then I grew up here in Vancouver, and I I eventually spread my wings into. I guess the first time I ever went away was actually for modeling, which is very interesting. But
How did
we were.
how did that
Yeah.
happen? How did you get discovered for modeling, and then what age were you,
Okay.
and where did you go?
Yeah, this is actually a really interesting story. So, um, well, it's interesting to me anyway. I
We'll see, I
people are
tell
like,
you. We'll
just scrubbing
see.
forward, like just scrubbing forward.
Is it as
Uh,
interesting as Daniel's story, and then
Probably not.
and
Probably not.
Andrew's story? It better be.
But I will tell you, I had been acting in theater and starting getting my feet wet in television, although I had never worked. But friends of mine in growing up were working all the time, so it was something that I was interested in. So I was pursuing that path, and I remember going to see a photographer in Vancouver for new headshots for acting, and um, he's like, "Hey, I'm just going to pull back on a few of these headshots and just kind of like open it up and make it, just give you a little bit more of a model portfolio." And I thought, okay, no worries, that sounds okay. And then we did him, and he said, "Hey, I want you to take these to a friend of mine, which is Richard's model management out of Vancouver. I think you know Richard too."
Yep.
Um, and he called Richard and he said, "Hey, I've got this guy. I just did headshots for him. He's an actor, but I want you to see his stuff." And certainly, I didn't see myself as a model. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. I just didn't. I never really. I
Really,
never really.
being Italian and looking like you, known as like you could be a photo model. Never.
Foto
That's
modello.
see.
I never really saw myself as necessarily that. I kind of was just trying to figure out how to do more acting stuff.
Right.
Regardless, I went to go see him, and he's like, "Yeah, this is you look like you could do some stuff. How about we send you to Milan?" And that's how it happened. And he sent my headshots off. They're like, "Yeah, we'll take them." So I flew out to Milan. I think I was around maybe 18 or 19 years old. I flew out to
What
Milan.
what year? What year is this?
I
90,
feel like
95?
98, no, like 98, 97, 98, something like that.
Okay.
Because I remember it was pre 2000. But I also remember I was playing in bands here in Vancouver, and that was kind of in and around that time of like 97, 98. So maybe like 98, 99, maybe the year before. Yes, it was around 98.
Okay.
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 And I went ahead and started working for this. Well, I got accepted by a modeling agency out of Milan called Ricardo Guy.
Uh-huh.
Model Plan. It was the male sector of Ricardo Guy, and that was it. It was like 15 auditions a day, and sort of trying to get out there. It was like I always say it was kind of like a rat looking for a piece of cheese, because I was continually going out to these auditions, and with very limited very limited successes, I would say. But I ended up working for Calvin Klein at the time, which was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it was in around that time when Calvin Klein was like the biggest thing. So for me, it was a kind of a really big deal, and doing a bunch of other really great shows and things like that, and ended up going to Germany after that, um, and then not Japan. I was in Korea. I was in South Korea for a while. So I had this really great cultural experience from that angle to through modeling, and all I was really looking to do was more acting, which is strange.
And what age are you here? 19, you said?
Around 19, yeah, and uh,
And what did your parents think of you going off to model? And were they excited that you were going to be going to the like? Because they're not. Where are they from in Italy? Your parents?
my dad is from Salerno, and my mother is from Barletta
Okay.
originally,
Okay.
and that's all in the south. See, my parents figured that me going to Italy was going to be probably something like how Italy was when they left it in in the 60s. Certainly, it was very very different than that. Uh, I, case in point, I remember being clearly being chased by being chased by interesting people in Milan that were just like, yeah, homeless people, and there's they would say American boy, and they would like kind of pester, and it was a very very wild
Were
wild
they trying to
experience.
sleep with you, or were they trying to hurt you?
I
Or
think it was
both?
kind of like there was this thing where it was like, when you get sort of the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed kind of newbie in town, and there's, someone is just kind of like been around a lot, and everything was like very much like, American boy, you come here, American, and they would like, I was staying at this place
Yeah.
called the Pola Residence,
I know it
and
well.
you know it well. That's right. Yeah.
That's right. Yep.
And there was
Mama
Mama
Pola.
Pola. And if you remember Mama Pola's voice, right, it was very, very hoarse. She was a smoker. So she'd speak like this, and she'd always say,
And
Antonio, vieni che ti proteggo io. And I remember running in one day, and I was actually chased by a transvestite, um,
naturally.
incidentally. Yeah. And I was just freaked out because I didn't, I just had people after me, and it was just like walking down the street. And Mama Pola wouldn't let anybody, mess with her people. So she just came out, and she was a beast. And she protected me. And I wish I could have stayed there longer, but I think I stayed there probably about a month or two, and then I moved to Model One,
Hmm.
which is where you had lived. We had
Yep.
discovered
Yep.
Model One was a residence that was owned by Eric Clapton's ex-wife.
I didn't know that.
Yes, yes, Eric Clapton's ex-wife, Lori Del Santo.
No way.
Yes, you should know this.
I didn't know
Lori
that.
Del Lori Del Santo is Eric Clapton's ex-wife. As a matter of fact, she had a son with Eric Clapton who had passed away, for which there was a song written
Tears
called
in,
Tears in Heaven.
and she's Eric Clapton's ex-wife. That story, and that I had heard about that
Yes,
incredibly sad story, but I didn't know that was with her. I didn't know she owned that
she
residence.
owned that. She owned that residence, and it was. I remember very clearly walking into her office, which was a separate building, and sitting down and saying, "Hey, I need a place to live." And she said, "Why do you need a place to live like right now?" And I said, "The place that I'm staying in was uncomfortable for me." And it was because there was a few other models there. Everyone was just sardined to this one apartment. And I was like, "I'm just done," And she's like, "Well, we have a place coming up, but if you want, I can ask one of the residences if they'll allow you to sleep in the kitchen." So I said, "Okay, that sounds good." She goes, "You can stay there for a couple of weeks until the room opens up, and then you can, whatever." So I had the amazing experience of sleeping in a model apartment
In the kitchen.
kitchen for 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 a couple of weeks, and that was very 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 complex experience for me, coming from you know I'd say a very protective family who's always giving me my space, and here I'm living with a bunch of models who have like
Mm.
different timing than you, and sleeping in a communal area like a kitchen. It was very very interesting, to say the least.
did you enjoy that period of time, or was it like a big struggle being in, because it was so mixed for me. I was so young, had never been on my own before. I was having an existential crisis with God, like I had become celibate and born again, and I was just playing my guitar and reading my Bible in those model apartments when everyone
Mm,
was having sex and blowing cocaine and doing, ecstasy and all these things. And you were there a few years after me, actually. It was, which it could have been a different time from 90. I was
mm.
there in 95, so a few years before. But
Well,
for me, it had a
yeah.
mixed. It was the best because it was so extreme that I became very like monkish. But what was it like for you?
I would say that it was very similar. It was a similar experience in this way. I feel like the tempo of models in Milan, the years can change, but the tempo remains the same. Everyone's still going to El Parco trying to buy hash. There's still the same amount of cocaine, Parco Sempione, right? Everyone would go to El Parco, they'd call it. It'd be Parco Sempione, and they would
See,
go try to buy hashish, and and one of the first memories and one of the first experiences that I had in this apartment is that there would be these guys that would do these major campaigns. One had done, um, well, I won't say the campaign because then they can go ahead and figure out who the person is, but it was a major campaign in a major magazine, and he had made all this money in effectively one weekend, and there was a huge mound of cocaine on the kitchen table for which people would just partake. And
mm, yeah.
I hadn't even seen cocaine in my entire life. I mean, like that was the very, very first I've ever never even seen it. And I was buying organic chicken, and you know, I was just like, I mean, to explain to try to describe the dichotomy of the two. So like, I was not Bible thumping as you were, not to slight it, but
No.
I wasn't at that point in my life, but I was certainly at a point where I was like, okay, I'm going to focus. I'm going to do really well at this. I'm going to get up early. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to, eat really great food. And here is everyone doing cocaine. And I remember the first lie I told, and I remember ever tell lies. And the first lie I told when they were all calling me names because I didn't want to partake in their drug ceremony was when I said, look, I had a problem with this, and I was addicted, which is a clear lie, but I had to say something in order to not be called names. And one guy pulled me aside and he's like, hey man, stay away from that. He goes, I get it. I don't even want you to see it because I know how hard it could be. I try to quit. And he kind of took me under his wing, and he's like, he would protect me. He'd be like, this guy had a problem with this, and
Wow.
he has to stay away from it. We're rooting for you. You know what I mean? Like, you can make it. And like, I hadn't even ever smoked a cigarette. You know what I mean? So it was like, but I felt like I had to say something because it was just all around me. And it felt like there was like this peer pressure to try to do it, you know? So, um, so yeah, that was my initial experience, and I ended up getting out of that unscathed.
Wow.
Yeah,
So,
completely
so
unscathed.
what's one of the best decisions you made during that time? Because it's a really crucial time. I know a lot of guys that got lost in between Paris and Milan,
Yeah.
and that's,
Um,
whether it's drugs or bad decisions. What's the best decision you made during that time as a young 19-year-old Antonio?
Interesting you say that. The best decision I made. Well, I would probably say the best decision I made was getting a girlfriend in that time, because when I wasn't out, kind of just like meandering, and like looking for a relationship, or a short experience in a relationship, I met this girl, and we were continually cooking together, and
Was she
she
Italian?
was from
Was she
southern, she was
Italian?
Italian, yeah. And she was from southern Italy, and we were cooking together, and she was like, ironing my socks at 3 o'clock in the morning, and like all these things. There was just like,
Why at
what, like,
why at three? Is that just because that's a pretty good time to
as
do
you
it?
do the laundry, when the laundry is ready, yeah, you pull it out and you iron. but
So having a girl,
but
that's not what I would expect. Having a girlfriend was your best decision. I love that.
yeah, it was because what it did is it took me out of the circuit. You know what I mean? Like, it took me away from, the continual barrage of like just like being a model in Milan and going to what was that discotheque, Hollywood,
Yep.
you know, going to Hollywood on the Sunday to watch the movies with all the models. And then, there's like little things that you meet somebody, and then there's a little thing, and you meet somebody else on the Tuesday over there. And then you have a little, all these experiences, they're just like, they weren't really what I was there for, but they're a part of model lifestyle that
Yeah.
you just kind of adopt. And I'd say that the thing is like having a Southern Italian girlfriend is just like, you're staying here, it's like, you're not going out anywhere. It's like, well, I want to watch a movie with it. It's like, no, but ultimately it was a great thing because
That's
I had,
amazing.
I, yeah, I had no other decisions to make.
Wow.
It was like, they were all made for me, apparently.
Well, that's very similar to me. I had Jesus, and you had a Southern Italian girlfriend. It's
In
very
many
similar.
ways, they're similar.
Very
Yeah.
similar. Those decisions were very much guided, and I felt very protected in that time. Now, what's the worst decision you made during that time?
Let me ask you a question
Okay,
before we get
okay,
on this.
okay.
What was the decision? Was it returning to God at that point, or was it for your own self-preservation, or was it for something like, what was the born
Mm.
again?
Thank you for asking me a question, but I honestly wish I knew the answer. It feels like it was just grace in the sense that, I met a girl, a model, Jenny was her name, and she was beautiful, and she was a Christian, and I had just started modeling at the time. I was 18 or 19, and I grew up Christian, but it was like only on the summer camps I was into it, and then once school would start, I would just be, a total reprobate in some ways. But I had some relationship with God growing up, and I grew up drumming in church, and I grew up in church, but I rebelled. I couldn't stand it. And I met this girl, and she looked cool, and I'm like, you're Christian, like, you like God? And she was like beautiful, and I was like, well, if I'm ever gonna have someone like that, I better stop my shenanigans.
Yeah.
And my shenanigans weren't drugs or even drinking, but it was more promiscuous.
Right. Right.
So I became celibate when I met her, and I was like, I'm gonna wait until I'm married, and I did. I waited 6.5 years through all that: Paris, Milan, Tokyo, London, Hamburg, Athens, and married at Oliver, my son's mom, when I was 24. But yeah, it was, Antonio. It was just just like, you were guided to not. You were guided by your. There's some. I feel like there's almost like this path that I just had to walk down. I didn't have a lot of choice. It just sort of, I made little choices along the way, but there was a momentum that my life
Yeah.
was for something bigger than losing it in drugs and alcohol and partying and women
Absolutely.
at 19, 20. There was a bigger purpose for my life. But
Yeah.
thank you for asking me. That's
Well, I mean, it's that. Well, as a thing, the thing is that I understand what you're saying. I feel like in a way, there was an in between that I chose that was just like, I didn't stop, drinking. I certainly didn't do any drugs, and I didn't give up women. However, I chose one. So it was like, it was just the one step before where I stopped. But
yeah,
um, interesting that you say, because the older I get, I feel like I get I every year I get increasingly closer to God. So this is like something that, like, just the
really,
natural progression with my own children as well. And after I had them, everything, the universe just started seeming like so perfect in a lot of ways. Why does everything function the way it does? For as bad as it is, trust me, there's a lot that's not perfect, as you know. But all of this can't just be, just because the environment's right for the bacteria to grow in a certain way. There must have been something more. So I keep on getting closer to that, without giving away too much. But yeah, a life of believing, and a life of religion. So it's interesting that you had that thought so early, is what I'm saying. And I'm going to take the opportunity to close these blinds, because you see how it's trying to balance the light between my face and the blinds. I'm going to close them now. You've
sure.
seen the view, right?
There's the view. That's the Pacific Ocean
That's the Pacific. Yeah.
herself. And every, I would say, 10 minutes your internet kind of does something weird. I don't know if you have a better signal, or a more
You know what
robust.
that's called? That's called the discount internet.
This is a cool
It's the
shot.
no name.
This looks like a film, like almost like a murder mystery film noir. Who's that guy in the background with an
It's
Italian
Paul
accent?
Greene. No, it's Paul Greene who gets cast, and Antonio was at the audition watching you get cast. That's what it is.
I am
uh,
so blown away that that was you at that bitten chemistry read that we got flown out to Toronto for.
so when you said that the guy was Euro, right? I had come in. I had just come back from Italy, and I was certainly very, very, very Euro. I remember you were Paul Greene, so you had your bracelets on, you had your bracelets on, and you were looking like super super cool, and I was looking super Euro. Like I remember I had my shirt tucked in and my tight jeans, and I had probably slightly pointier shoes, and
A
I was
nice
like,
and a nice overcoat. I remember this moment. It just blows my
yeah,
mind.
yeah, and I had left LA on the same plane as you guys, and I stayed in Canada. You guys flew back that night.
Wow.
I remember because, yeah, there was one of the guys that got the part. He's as well Canadian, and got the part
Grayson.
of the Grayson
Grayson
Holt.
Holt,
Yeah,
right.
and I remember we were sitting in the van heading to the audition. I think we all shared a van from the airport, and I remember thinking that's the coolest name I've ever heard. Grayson Holt. I
Yeah,
mean, like,
it's a great
is that the
name.
coolest name you've ever heard in your life,
It is one of the cooler names
aside
that
from
I've
Paul Green?
I mean, no, Grayson's, and then and for people who don't know what we're talking about Bitten, and it's a show. Weirdly enough, it's how I got Hallmark. Bart Fisher saw Philip, the character that you and I auditioned for, and Philip had the qualities of one of these leading men, right? Like he was loyal to his girl. He wasn't a werewolf, and that's enough. Then
That's
I got
right.
offered the job because I wasn't a werewolf,
Yeah,
and I was loyal to my. But there's very different than Hallmark is what Bitten is or was.
I think part of the reason you
Rest in
got that
peace.
and I didn't, just to touch on it, is because you're actually like a really great guy, and the character is just this kind of like very sort of teddy bear like humble kind of guy. And not to say that I'm not necessarily humble, but like more like you know I'm people meet like he's okay, he'll be fine. When they meet you, they're like, I just want to cuddle him. You know what I mean?
I don't know what you mean because I want to cuddle you when I
I'm
see
saying that
you.
more than a friend, by the way.
And that is more than a friend. Yes, we're back to that. I'm going to have to include the pre-roll on this podcast because,
Yeah, absolutely.
or else no one's going to get that joke. But just
Yeah.
take me back a little bit further, and actually before we do that, you said, but without giving it away, what does it look like to get closer to God at your age? Like, what does that mean?
Well,
Because God really does mean something different to everyone in a way, you know?
one is just accepting Christ in your heart, and accepting the idea. Like I think the biggest hurdle is just, people sometimes say, I don't believe, and that's totally fine. I've got plenty of friends like that. Like I don't believe. And of course I don't ever try to bring it up. um it means something different for everybody. I feel that, and I feel that if it's something that does something good for you, then that's great. And if it doesn't,
Mm.
then that's fine as well. I just think that there's a magic in being, and certainly after I had my children, there was just magic all around. I mean, like, you like I say, there is more to life than just having the right environment for things to grow. And the way things work, the way the earth provides for people and people provide for the earth, that the cycle of life, the way we think, the way we reason, uh, you know, I just think that there's something more. There's got to be something more. It just can't be. It can't be just this. And if it is, that's fine too. It's not like I'm not saying that it has to be another way. I'm just saying for me, it gives me some kind of feeling to accept that it's okay, that there's something larger than us that we can accept and believe in.
Mm-hmm.
It's good for kids too. It's really good for kids, you know, having the guidance of something that is not your parents, but some other thing, you know.
Right. Have your kids ever asked you what God looks like yet?
No, they haven't asked me that. They haven't asked me that. We don't
When,
really push it on them.
if they do, ask them what they think. One of my teachers said, if a kid ever asks you a really hard question, Paul,
Yeah.
don't explain to them what God looks like. Have them say to them, "What do you think God looks like?" Because when I did that with Oliver, Oliver looked at me and he goes, "You, God looks like you." He was like
Well,
5 years
hey,
old.
Paul,
Yeah,
is there anything wrong with that?
I thought it was amazing. But
God is us as well. God
yeah,
is all around us.
and it's
You
like
know, God is within.
we're representing what God is to our kids until they decide that, when the kids are really young, we're there, just we are gods to them until they discover that we're representing that for sure. So it was a big day of responsibility, but that was some of the best parenting advice I got. Was, other than that,
So you're suggesting that when we're asked of what God looks like, we ask them, "What do you think God
what do
looks
you
like?"
think? Because they're closer to God in the sense, especially in terms of years.
Yeah.
They haven't been here too long to have the media or the movies or books telling them what
Mm,
God looks like. They might know.
yeah.
Their answers are far more profound in
Yeah.
some ways out of the babes of infants, right? Um, yeah, man. So take us back further to the worst decision you made in that time
Oh,
when you were there. Okay,
oh, I'll tell you this one.
tell
I
me this
remember this
one.
one very
Tell me
clearly.
this one.
Okay. Number one, when you were there, did you feel like everyone's name was Jeremy? I just felt like everyone I knew was named Jeremy, and it was just like, oh, Jeremy, 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 and they always wore headphones just like you're wearing right now, but they were just listening to music with like a Walkman, like just Jeremy, Jeremy, Jeremy. It's all I remember. Like it
Oh
was
my
so clear.
goodness.
Every
Why?
apartment had like three Jeremys. I don't know why. It's
Oh,
it's
they're from the
something
because
with
they were from the
Jeremys.
Midwest,
Whatever it was,
like Iowa.
Jeremy one day, one of the Jeremy, one of the Jeremiah,
Jeremiah's.
one of the Jeremiahs asked me to go to El Parco with him. He's like, oh, come, we were just finishing this audition. He's like, oh, come through. We're gonna cut through the park. Whatever, doesn't matter. So we're cutting through the park, and he's just like, and a guy comes up to him. He's like, hey, you want to buy some caramello? Caramello was the like the hashish of like the area or whatever. It's like what everyone was looking for. And the guy, and I'm just like, no, 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 and I keep on walking, right? And I turn around, and the guy stops, and he's talking to the guy,
Jeremy.
and I'm just like, Jeremy, let's go. He's like, well, I want to, yeah. Jeremy's like, oh, I want to buy some stuff. It's like, are you out of your? Let's go. And he's just like, next thing you know, this guy pulls out a knife, a blade, and just like, and just like held him up. I'm right there though. I'm just like, what does Jeremy do? Well, what anyone else would do, turned on his heel and darted. And it was every man for himself. I'm just like, how did I get myself involved here? Now, uh, Jeremy was svelte to say the least. He was like a gazelle. I'd never seen a guy run like this. I mean, partly because the knife was actually pulled on him, but like this
Right.
guy, is that my phone buzzing? Oh, I don't even know where it is. But this guy was like leaping over things like fountains and bushes. And I'm just like, the clumsy, in your dreams when you're trying to run away from something and you cannot run, there's like, there's that, what is that lion that went extinct in like, prehistoric ages with the big fangs? Anyway, is like one of those right behind you and you can't move,
A saber tooth.
like a saber tooth or something like that.
Yeah.
And you cannot move. You've got like cement blocks attached to your feet.
Oh yeah.
This was me. Okay. And this guy was like hot on my tail. So anyway, I ended up getting away from him. Okay. But still, it was such a compromising position for me to be in. And it started a thought for me that to this day remains: when other people make decisions for you, you need to be prepared for the consequences. There will be consequences, even if they're good, necessarily. Like even if they're like, oh, like give me a ride to Ralph's. Okay, hop in. It's like you're doing now something that it was put on you, and you're doing it out of the goodness of your heart, but you also have to be able to accept whatever potential consequence remains, right? And I feel like more often than not, when I've made decisions for myself, purely for myself and my family, I've made the decision. It was the correct decision. When decisions are made for me, oh, come on, let's do this, or let's go over here, or come with me here, I want it. Somehow when things go sideways, I remember it. I'm just like, I allowed myself in. I allowed myself to do that, you know?
Like that time I invited you up to my apartment in Vancouver to do that Instagram live. Like that was
Oh yeah, yeah.
that was my idea. And is that one of those moments where you're like, oh, now I'm out there
Where's
live? That was funny.
where's
That
a
was funny.
pure disaster. The only thing I will say is that I don't really normally do lives, although I certainly love the one-on-one time and having kind of like, having adult time in a time of COVID, and when you're always with your kids is actually kind of refreshing.
Mm,
So I think that was around the time that we couldn't really hang out either because,
mm,
of rules and stuff. But we were also both tested regularly, and we were on shows and everything else. So
yeah.
we had we did what we had to do. But yeah, no, that was certainly not one of those things. But I see that you have not changed any of your tempo there with your milkshake. What's in that? Because I know that you've got your regimen, and I've acquired some of that. I've like adopted some of your mushroom things and whatever. What is this? What are we talking?
This is a handful of almonds, a bunch of real lemon juice, organic lemon juice, some grass-fed whey powder because I've been training quite a lot of lifting and different things. So I'm actually building muscle right now, and then almond milk and water. But the lemon and the almond and the vanilla that's in the whey powder, it just creates this. When I was in Miami at the beginning when I was modeling in like '95 or '6, there was a bodybuilders high protein shake at this one smoothie shop, and I just remembered this the other day to put almonds, lemon, and whey powder and whipped it, and it is so creamy and so like it's tart, but it's also milk. It's delicious. It's delicious.
Will you
Uh,
send me that recipe? I think you
yeah.
should post this recipe, by the way, because I think
Oh my
people
gosh,
want it.
it's so delicious, and it's you would never think
Yeah.
to put almonds, lemon, and whey powder. You would think, oh, that might turn into a curd festival, but it doesn't. Doesn't curd. How?
I
Okay,
hate that
when it curds, I know you put like if you put almond milk in
when it
certain
curds.
things, it's just.
Yeah, soy milk and certain things
Is
like
there anything worse than
soy
that?
latte.
Like in a
What is it?
citrus tea, if you put it in like a citrus based tea, it'll curdle like a. But it doesn't with this for some reason.
It's terrible.
So wait, okay, so hold on a second. Hold on a second. Did you before you started modeling know you wanted to act, and had you been acting in school? I know you had an agent, and they were going to get headshots when you got discovered by
Oh yeah,
by
I
Richards.
had been acting for years. I acted in through high school, through elementary school, even tons of school plays, and I was always involved in any productions, even with the theater, the community theater in Vancouver and Burnaby specifically. I was continually involved.
Okay.
So I knew I wanted to act, but I didn't know what the process was in acting for television. I knew that there was a thing that you did, and it would get you roles as a theater actor, but I didn't know how to necessarily transition. So I started doing classes and really kind of studying and working on that aspect of it, and finally kind of broke in. But after the modeling, because the modeling gave me confidence, strangely enough.
Did it?
When I came back, yeah,
In what way and why? Like I guess it's your first time out in the world, right? By on
yeah.
you're like we were did it at the same age. I just love that. For me, I know why I agree with you. It gives confidence, but why was it for you that modeling gave you confidence? Other than people going like you should be professionally good looking. Like, so did anyone
Yeah.
ever say those words to you? It's like you should do this.
No,
You
I
should do
never had that
this
problem.
professionally. It
I
was
never
all
had
your
that problem.
personality. What
Well,
was it?
people always said like, "Oh, you should do comedy." Yeah, unfortunately, people don't really see me as comedy, generally speaking. You know me as more comedy probably because we
No, no.
cracking jokes all the time. And you're like, no, actually, no, no. But yeah, what did Milan do? I think that this people have a misconception of being in a city like Milan or even Rome. And in Rome, I lived for a long time as well. and they think that it's like, oh, it's kind of like, it's not as hard as something like New York, where it's like a real city. Um, but like if you can survive Milan and you can survive Rome, you can survive really any city in the world, because there is like so many things that can go wrong in a big city like that. So many things. In New York, no one cares about you. In LA, certainly no one cares about you. But in New York, everyone's doing their own thing. You really have to find yourself in a really bad situation, a bad corner, to like, for something to go wrong, like actually wrong. You know, in Milan, it comes looking for you. Trouble will hunt you down from a mile away. And Rome, the same thing. If you can survive Rome, in any Italian city that's a big city, where the only two are really Milan and Rome, but in Naples. But if you can survive those three cities, you can survive anything. So what it gave me was this. Um, I feel like when you come back from a really big city, even to a place like LA or like Vancouver or Toronto, um, you have a little bit of an edge because you've had your training. It's like you're an Olympic runner, but you're not training on a regular track. You're training in the mountains, and the air is lighter, and you've got a weight belt on, and you've got your chest weights on, and you've got your ankle weights on. And then you come back to the city and you're just like, it's all lifted. And
Totally.
everything feels like it's in slow motion. So I was looking around, I'm like, how come no one's taking this lane? Like, there's like three lanes. It's like, oh, that's the HOV lane, for more than four people. It's like, yeah, but it's free.
Free. I
No
know.
one's in it. You know what I mean?
There's
So
rules in Rome and in Milan. There's no
no
rules.
rules.
And I
So
wonder
you
if
start
that's like
thinking a
an
little bit outside the box,
yeah.
and you see opportunities where other people are just looking at, their, whatever mundane thing that we do as we get into a cycle of, living. You end up being in a big city and having all that training and experience of just trying to fend for yourself. You come back and it's like everything is in slow motion, and you're in speed. You're just like, wow, it's like your whole perspective changes. That's why I feel like I kind of got my first break with my confidence, when I came back from Milan. I was just like, anything. Like, I survived.
Well, every young kid at that
That's
age,
really about it.
every young kid should, if they don't have the opportunity to be a male model, should probably still go to Europe and backpack and experience these other cultures, because it must have been cool for you
100%.
because you speak Italian. Did you speak Italian that well then? Like, did your mom and dad grow up speaking it with you, or how come you're?
No, I always dabbled in Spanish and Italian, and kind of just, I knew how to be, I knew how to probably, well, I make the joke, I didn't know how to order a cappuccino in Italy. And that's partly true because I really
Cappuccino.
didn't. But yeah, un cappuccino, per favore. But you pick it up real quick. Aside from that, you being in it, I agree with you 100%. You should be backpacking or traveling
Yeah.
through those. Aside from just understanding that the world is bigger than just, Santa Monica or, Sherman Oaks. You know what I mean? It's like it is so much bigger than that, and not only just like the expanse of the world, but actually in your mind, and how your body assimilates the information and the culture, and what that does for you when you come back. I think it's really important for everyone to do that. And
Totally.
in doing it on your own, I think is really important, because if you go with six buddies, I mean, you're just bringing your own culture to whatever city you go. If you go solo, you are forced to really set in, right, and absorb and feel one with the culture that you're in.
It's true, and you grow up so quickly that way. Like you, you.
Yeah,
Whereas if you stay
yeah.
in the same town, you might fall into patterns, and maybe you fall in with drugs and things. If you But we're traveling, you get such a perspective of that the world is so beautiful, and there's so much potential of what, because you see people out there, artists or architects. You walk through Paris and you look at the architecture, or Moscow and you look at the architecture, it changes you. It's not
Mm.
the same as looking at a book. But I'm going to read this out loud to you because I want to read this to you and watch your face. And I also want to hear how you transitioned out of male being professionally good looking into your first acting role. But let me read this first, and I want you to tell me this is a game of true or false. Antonio Cupo was born in Vancouver, Canada.
False.
Where were you born?
Burnaby.
Okay, got it. Okay, good.
Well, do you want me to be honest
No,
here?
yes, I would like you to be honest. Okay,
I was born in Burnaby.
And you stand.
It's Vancouver. It's the
Sure.
neighboring town,
Sure.
but it's not. It was Burnaby.
Okay, this is from Yahoo News, so it might be wrong. And Antonio spent his early years as a stage performer. True or false?
True.
With interest in psychology and acting, he enrolled in the University of British Columbia, earned a Bachelor of Arts degree while beginning his career as an actor. True or false?
True.
All right, good. A later move to Los Angeles offered many opportunities in film and TV, from Steven Spielberg to James Cameron, also known as Jim Cameron. Antonio, is that true?
I don't know if they call him Jim. I would assume that most
No,
James
not
are
about
Jim,
but that they both interested you.
No, it's not that they interest me. I worked for TV series that they were producing.
Oh, what are those?
Yeah. Well, Spielberg was Taken, and James Cameron was. It should say there.
It doesn't, but I mean, you should know this.
Cameron. Yeah, no, it's. I muted myself.
It'll come. No, it'll come back. We're gonna keep moving though. I love that, by the way. Hallmark's lucky to have you, man. I can't believe that I got to star in a film with you. I love that, Antonio.
Well, I mean, Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. What do I know?
No, I mean, like I appreciate that, but I mean, I think being here in Vancouver, when you're working here, big shows are coming through all the time. So it's an opportunity that we were given to be a part of projects that were had really big directors, producers on board. That was one of the things where it's like, yeah, you'll do a James Cameron series, you'll do your 4 or 5 days or 4 or 5 months or one day, and you were effectively a part of that. So this is one of the really great things. This is why I think it's really important to choose where you live wisely, because if you're in a town that's a logging town, you might grow up to be a logger. But if you're in a town that has cinema as its fundamental industry, or one of the main industries, chances are you might work in that industry. Whether it's an actor or not is up to you.
Yeah, so
you'll get all kinds of opportunities.
Is that advice that you would give to a young actor? Is like, go put yourself where the water is if you want to get wet?
Yes, in a way, but I think people are way too eager to get to Los Angeles, and I don't think that's a wise idea, because the last thing LA needs and actors need is Los Angeles. You don't want to go to a place where you're one of a million minnows. You want to go to a place where you're a shark. You want to be in a town that's got a really bustling, great industry, but doesn't have a talent pool like LA. I mean, LA, guys like me and you are just like everywhere. Certainly guys like you. No, certainly guys like me. No, no, but I mean, I jokingly say when I leave an audition, like, how the audition goes? Like, great. There was like 65 people that were named Antonio Cupo, but they were better looking and they had better credentials, and they were incidentally also smarter, which is which is not tough to beat. But I mean, the point of the matter is that why would you want to be in a little fish in a big pond? Plus, who works in LA? I mean, I don't know anybody that works in LA. Everyone's working out of LA.
It's true. So what advice would you then give to a young aspiring Antonio Cupo?
Stop while you're ahead. No, just kidding.
Stop while you're ahead.
I would, yeah. No, I would say, just keep your head down and keep studying. Never you will never ever learn what it is to act. I've just begun to understand what it is to act. I learn every single day. On my deathbed, I will say there's 1,000 more years of understanding before you could even grasp the minimum amount of what you need. Life is just like that. There are hundreds of thousands of generations before us that carried life to this point. We are just trying to bring little pieces of it and make it look natural. But like, no one ever learns how to fully live, which means you'll never learn how to fully act.
Mm.
Because all we're doing effectively as actors is living in front of a camera and telling those stories. Now you'll be proficient at acting. You could be an incredible actor. You could rise to the top of your field and you could be number one. You could win an Oscar. But even if you won an Oscar, I think most people who won an Oscar would probably agree that they haven't yet really made it.
Mm.
Because real, what is understanding about life? What do you understand about life? It's not a direct question, but these are some of the things that you would ask yourself even as an actor. Like, you just don't know. Every day is different, right? So
Mm.
you learn tools. You have tools, and they're going to come out with bigger and better tools, I'm sure, one day. But we have tools for gardening and tools for going online, and we have tools for acting that we use, and they help us. And sometimes there's really great naturalism and credibility, and other times there's less so, and certainly that is a lot to do with us and very little to do probably with many other aspects. However, I feel like we're always really, really quick to blame the other aspects as opposed to ourselves. but
Right.
but yeah, I mean, I don't even know why we got on this tangent, but
Well, no, I do. So with Antonio Cupo's looking around, when would you know, or how would you know that you've made it, or would you? Like when you look around, you'd
um,
be like, "This has happened. This is
yeah.
happening." You look at your kids, you look at your wife, you look at like, how do you? Would you know, or is that even a realistic place? Would you go, "Oh, I've made it"?
There's no, yeah, there's no date or like special event that says that you made it. I don't think I don't see it. um I think that success, certainly as an actor, there are very small successes, and you should set your goals reasonably. And one of the things I tell young actors is success at the beginning stages. You can consider days worked per annum as a success, because you're trying to get as much experience as you can. Oftentimes an actor will come to me and say, they're I played this role in this one movie, and I don't want to be typecast, so I'm trying to break out of that. I want to do more roles, like, as this character here. Like, I want to play the Prince Charming character as opposed to the ogre, or whatever the case is. And it's just like, you have to have a really good BS meter, an internal indicator that suggests that you are perhaps right for something. You have to know what that is, and if you don't, you should search for it, right? And if you think that you know typecasting is a bad thing,
Hmm.
try not being cast at all.
Right, right, I,
Alternatively, it's a much worse thing, right? It's like, oh, okay,
right,
I could be typecast or not cast, right?
right.
So I go, try to be typecast if you can. If they're hiring you for model number two, which I'm sure both you and I have gone out for more than we like, but if they're hiring you for that character, okay, play it, but do it better than anybody else in town.
Right.
Make them, when a script comes through and a breakdown comes through the casting office, make them want to call you. This guy, model number two, you need to hire this guy. This guy is the guy. Rock star number whatever, or singer of a band, punk rocker, all these roles that are suggested to you that you might not feel that you're right for. What are you right for? Understand what that is and fearlessly chase that. Get cast until you can't get cast anymore. Worry about breaking the mold later,
Right. Right.
right?
I love that because yeah, experience and actual to getting your 10,000 hours is much more important than than the variety of playing an hour of this character, an hour of that character. You'll have no depth to your ability to. I hear you, and I think that's really good advice.
Yeah.
Do you have one audition that was like the thing that turned it all for you? Like, do you have a moment where you're like, that role or that audition was a massive turning point? Do you have a moment like that in this business?
Yeah, I do. My first role, I remember very clearly because I'd been rejected so many times. My first role was on a show called Beggars and Choosers, which was a TV show about the acting industry, about the entertainment industry. And it was around the year 2000. I just got back from Milan, and I remember very clearly there was an actor named Kyle Cassie who was cast as that role, which is effectively the boyfriend of a producer, right? It was a gay character, and Kyle Cassie was the guy. He was the guy. He was set to play the role, but he was double booked. Good problem to have. So he had to give up his role. So casting called me. I had a really good read for it, but I was nowhere near the level of Kyle Cassie. And he'll tell you the same story, by the way. If you ever meet him, he's great. Whenever I see him, like last time I saw him at the airport, I'm like, I have you to thank for my first role. I'm building my career, because it's true. If he hadn't have rejected that role because he was double booked, good problem to have, as we said, I would have never had my break. And I just needed to get my feet wet. I felt I just needed to like get my dirty little fingers inside the door jamb and pry open that door. But anyway, so he gave up the role. They went to the second choice. So what was a first for me was I was actually a second choice. It's like
Right.
a trend that has followed me my entire life. However, that is a different discussion. But yeah, I was given this opportunity. I remember my it was one day on set. I remember my one line was, "I'm gonna get some fruit. Do you want anything?" Okay. And I of course, didn't want to overplay it, or I didn't want to, do it in a way that was going to be like, not great. So I just, I practiced my one line, and I try to do the best I can. And I went there and I said, I'm going to get some fruit. Do you want anything? I mean, I'm sure you could dig this video up. It's somewhere online. I'm sure it's around. And, uh, and, uh, and yeah, from there it was like that was my very first experience. That was a thing that kind of got me going. And then I went away right after that, and then I went to go model in Korea. Oddly enough, I'd like come back. I'd done this thing. I got my feet wet a little bit. I did one or two jobs, and then I went away again for modeling in Korea, and that's when sort of everything took a turn.
Your modeling in Korea took a turn. Were you doing commercials when you were? Wait, what happened in Korea? That's when everything. That's when
That's
you
when everything
realized.
went downhill.
That's when you started collecting pandas. No, what actually, what actually happened in Korea?
I feel like we have to complete another story before we get onto Korea. But anyways, yeah, that was the beginning of my acting, foray into acting, I'd say.
Uh, uh,
No, I mean the Korea story was basically what was the show I was doing? I got hired on a show, um, and I was working with, and I was in Korea, and I had to come back to shoot. Oh, that's what it was. It was the L word. Oh, let me get back to you here. The L word. Okay, this is a great story. So I was away in Korea modeling, and I got booked while I was away. I got booked on a TV show called The L Word, which is a big show for Showtime that was out for years and years. And my agent called me and said, "Hey, that they want you for this role, and you're playing the uh, Bishop. What was his name? Something Bishop, Duke Bishop, Billy Bishop. I don't know what it was, but it was this character in the pilot episode, and effectively he was the sperm donor. He was the one that gets one of the two main girls who were lesbian pregnant. Um, and I was like, wow, that sounds like a really great role. I mean, I feel like I'm born for this role. So they said, yeah, you got to go back to Vancouver and shoot it. So I was like, okay, well, I was in Korea. I didn't know what to do. So I was like, I had just gotten sick, really badly sick off of, I believe it was a bad beeping bop. Bop's like a bowl of kind of like this salad noodle thing that they break an egg in and it cooks against the clay pot. Digress. I believe I ingested something that my body did not tolerate, and I swelled up like a balloon. Like my tummy was like, it was like really really bad, and I had gone on antibiotics. and I was recovering, so I couldn't model. And the agency knew that I was at home recovering, but then I got hired on this job, so I bought a ticket and flew out. I remember it was like I was white, pale when I showed up, and I went ahead and I shot this one day on this TV series, The L Word, and there I met a producer named Larry Kanar. And Larry Kanar was like this. He was this producer working in LA, and that was his show. And he's just like, he said to me, he's like, when you're ready, let me know when you're coming to LA. I want to introduce you to some people. And he introduced me to an agency down in LA, and that eventually took me on. And it was just like that was it. I just started kind of from there. When I came back, I started working. The funny part about Korea is this: because I had left and come back, I effectively broke my contract. They found out that I left. And because I broke my contract, they couldn't pay out my contract rate. So they knew they had an out. Okay. Now I was sick. I didn't have to travel, but I also didn't have to work. Right. And I came back and I worked 2 or 3 weeks nonstop, every day, 17, 18 hours a day, just working, doing all these catalog stuff. It's like, oh, here's Antonio holding a weed whacker, and here's Antonio with a hedging shears, and it's like wearing these like coveralls and all this stuff, Korean brand clothing. And Koreans will tell you that these catalogs exist over there. They're very popular. And I went ahead and I came back on my own dime, and I worked nonstop, and I tried to make up for any time that I'd lost. I feel like I did. And they just worked me to the bone. When I was ready to leave, they didn't pay out any money, zero. None of my contract was paid out, which I believe was like 30,000 USD. And when you're like 22 years old, that's real money, So anyways, I wasn't, yeah.
That's brutal, man.
That was brutal. Yeah. And we couldn't sue them. They couldn't do anything. That was just nothing we can do. I went to see
you broke the contract.
That was it. Yeah, I broke the contract.
But it's such a good thing you did. Otherwise, that whole LA connection and that so great that you decided to do that. It sounds like a good decision overall.
Ultimately, that's what really, I would say, that's what really sort of started my career. Because then I was just like, boom, I was like in LA. I just done a show. Like, I mean, it wasn't a huge part, but it was a pilot episode of a big show. We had something to sell. It's like, hey, this guy just got off a show. He did the pilot episode. It was a lot better than, hey, I've never worked a day in my life, but I want to move to LA. It's like, forget about it. It's a pipe dream. There's all kinds of problems with that. One, cost of living. Two, green card, potential issues for living there, or whatever the case is. No one's going to hire you. Right. You're not legal. Right. So then you just get washed up in this big mix of people. That's like the underbelly of the real talent. It's just it's a really bad look.
Well, so you're in LA. I'm actually going to keep following this because this is a lot of fun. A later move to Los Angeles, which is what they're talking about here, offered many opportunities in film and TV, from Steven Spielberg to James Cameron. Tony later went on to star in a popular TV series for the Mediaset Italia called Alicia de Revambrosa, also known as the most watched TV series in the history of Italian television. True or false?
True. It sounds grandiose, doesn't it? It's actually all true. That was the most watched TV show in the history. Until that point, as far as I know, it was the most watched TV show in the history of Italian television.
And you were the
Is
star.
that not like wild?
And you were so when you go to Italy, everybody, Antonio, do they freak out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the way television works is that one program eats another. So if you'll be popular on today's TV show, and then a new TV show will come out and those characters will become popular. Then you do another show and you become popular. And it's like, that is the ongoing thing with TV, certainly in Italy. I would think also the same in North America. So when I was under the show, now I have the amazing opportunity of going back to Italy, and also that show replicating over and over again in Italy because it was such a success. So because of that, some people will watch it like it's the first time they've ever seen it, and now they're like 18, 19, 20 years old, and they're like, oh, what is this show? And it's like, that show's 20 years old. You know what I mean? It's not. It's like 15 years
And
old.
who is
So
this guy, Antonio?
yeah.
I like Antonio. You
Chi è Antonio?
okay, Antonio? Okay, so we're continuing now. The popularity garnered, the popularity garnered offered many other opportunities, starring alongside Academy Award winners Penelope Cruz in Elegy and F. Murray Abraham in the Canera, The Walking Mountain, Barbosa, and September 11th, 1683. What's that about?
That's all true. One, I had the amazing opportunity to work with Penelope Cruz. Penelope Cruz.
Did you
She was,
did you fall in love with her?
I will say that she was a very lucky woman. She was a very lucky woman.
She fell in love.
Uh,
She fell in love with you. She fell in love
I
with
will
you.
say that I did make that joke to her. We were sitting there. It was something like 7 o'clock in the morning, and it was very clear to me because I was hired to play her brother. Later, I was no longer hired to play her brother, but instead, when she saw all the photos on the board, she asked me, well, she asked casting to ask me to play her lover. Paul,
But
what do you
really,
think
so
I said?
will you iron my socks at 3 a.m.? Was that your
That's
question?
right. So my hesitation when they told me, I was like,
What was your hesitation?
I didn't have words. I mean, I didn't know how to say yes, with
See, you
the
just say
immediacy that I wanted to.
see.
So then they said, oh, we'll up your rate if you do it. And I was just like, and they were like, and we'll give you a better credit. And I'm just like, yeah, I'll do it. Absolutely, I'll do it. It wasn't by no means a negotiating ploy. It was just completely blown away that now I was going to be playing Penelope Cruz's lover in a movie. And we were 3 months away, which is so rare to be 3 months away from shooting. Okay. It was around spring. I was in LA and I started working out. I'm just like, I gotta look good for this part. This is my one chance to be partially naked on camera with Penelope Cruz and to look phenomenal. So what did I do? I was cranking weights every day, and bench press and biceps and tries and all of it. And I get to set, and who's directing?
It might say
Rose Couchette.
okay,
Isabelle Couchette.
okay.
Okay. And we're sitting there, and she's like, okay, Antonio, what we're going to do is you're going to take Penelope, you're going to lift her, you're going to put her on top of the sink area, and you're going to make love to Penelope in the bathroom. And I was like, okay, great, that sounds good. And then I was just like, okay, so move her here, and I'm just like, what? Where do I pull off my shirt? Like, do I do it beforehand maybe, or do I just show up without a shirt, or do I wait and afterward just kind of take it off? And she's just like, no, that's not, no, none of that. Have you never had sex with someone in a bathroom? It's like you don't have time to take off your clothes. You're just having sex on the counter, and that's it. And I'm like, but I was, maybe I can just like undo a couple buttons. She's like, no, 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 just don't do any of it. Just keep your clothes on. I'm like, I've been working out for 3 months. I've been working out for 3 months for this moment. And now
Yeah.
a director's telling me to keep my clothes on. I was so taken aback. Anyways, I kept my clothes on. So Penelope and I are leaning up against the wall, and it's 7 o'clock in the morning. She's looking at me. She's like, I'm so shy. She said, I'm so shy. And I was just like, I said, don't worry. I said, just
I got
think
you.
about how lucky, just think about how lucky you are.
You said that. You said that.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. That's such a thing you would say. Did it break the ice? Did she laugh? Was she loving it?
She did. She goes, "You're so funny."
Her accent.
She called me.
Is she what?
She's. And by no means do I do let some of the accent slip out, because when I tell the story, I generally say it with the accent. and I know that it's probably not proper, but she's just so cute,
I love her
you
actually.
know, and the way
It's
she says things is just like you just want to put her in your pocket.
I know. It's
So,
like Vanilla Sky. I just love Vanilla Sky.
oh,
You were
so
great in
good.
that.
Such
You were great in that. You looked a lot like Tom
thank you.
Cruise, but you were great in that.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that was one of my best work.
that is some of your best work. He later went back to the theater with a 135 show tour in the Rodgers and Hammerstein's musical Cinderella, playing the charming prince, and shot the world campaign for Rolex with award-winning film director Joe Carnahan from The Gray. Tell me about
Yeah.
is that all true?
I was in Rome. Yeah, absolutely, it's true. I was in Rome. These things don't lie. I mean, there are
They
some little
lie.
little things.
They
There are
lie.
some little things here and there. Sure, certainly, I
It
agree with you.
I think it says my net worth is like 62 million or something on there. So let's,
That's all true.
yeah,
That's all
that's
true.
all.
$62, maybe. I think there's a
62
couple extra O's.
nickels. No, it
Someone
has
just told me last week, they're like, I just looked up who the most paid actor in the entire world is, and your name came up. And I'm just like, that's not true.
hence why I'm going through this line by line like a legal
Yeah.
contract, like your agent should have in Korea.
Yeah.
We're just going to make sure that this is all okay. So, first of all, were you singing as the charmed prince in Cinderella? Obviously.
I was. Yeah, I was. I was.
How amazing!
I
Where is this touring around the United States or Canada or what?
that was touring in Italy, and we played every fantastic theater in Italy. I mean, these are theaters that are built in 12, 1300 after Christ. I mean, like, it's just insane, glorious, like,
Wow.
operatic theaters, with all the
Sure,
arches,
sure, sure, sure.
and we did, it was interesting because I didn't think I would go back to theater, but just having the responsibility of doing all your own booking, air travel, train travel, car travel, taking care of your own costume, hanging it up every day. No one did any of that stuff for you.
No
You know,
kidding.
gone are the days of you going back to your trailer and just, taking your stuff off and leaving everything around. In fact, it's a principle that I to this day I have adopted and kept. It's I always take care of my costume because it helps you get into character. It helps you, that is your character. What you
Hmm.
wear is one of the things that is seen. It brings you there immediately, and that's what helps you. So when I was doing the theater, if you got your costume dirty, you had to wear it dirty. That was it. Or you had to clean it yourself because there was no one that's going to do it for you. We had a costume department, but it was like once every 3 weeks they might launder something. It wasn't commonplace to launder something every day except for what you wore underneath. So that was a very kind of a humbling experience, just dealing with like singing an entire performance worth of songs, on a sore throat, when you're not feeling great, or you've just traveled the entire night, or you just had a big dinner, and now it's like, oh, here is something that I didn't think I'd have to deal with. I've got a full stomach, and apparently I have to access my diaphragm for this theater performance. It's like, you should have thought of that. Eat after the performance, don't eat before.
Oh, well, 135 shows, dude. That's like some serious muscle memory. I didn't know, and I heard you mention you were in a rock band. You were in a band in Vancouver even before you went into modeling. Like, how did I not know this about you about singing? Am I just not a good friend?
It's because we talk about Paul Greene when we're together. We don't talk about Antonio
That
Cupo.
is
But
not true. This is the most I have not talked about myself in a really long time, though.
I know that. I know that. I can just feel it. You're just like, when do I get to talk about myself here? No, just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. But yeah, there's still some stuff out there. If you go on Apple iTunes, you can still download tracks of mine. Just write Antonio Cupo and it'll come up. There'll be a bunch of songs there. I know that there are some things floating around in the net, or certainly, with old bandmates of like performances that we played. We toured Canada. We won a competition through a radio station here in Vancouver, 99.3, called Seeds. It was a competition. We
Okay.
won that. We went on to tour. We had recording time. There was a lot of cool stuff. We did a lot of really, really cool stuff back in the day. However, I kind of moved away from that because at a certain point, it wasn't really paying my bills. You know,
Yeah.
it was just like, this is a
Music's
thing that I'm doing. Yeah.
music's tough. I mean,
You
that's
know
why.
how it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm grateful that I have the acting and I can still do music on the side of it too. But like to fully provide for a family from just music, I don't know if it would be possible. Like not in this way.
You'd have to play in a wedding band or something like that and, play all covers. And I did that, by the way. I
You
did that.
did. I
I
love
did
it.
that. I played in wedding bands.
Oh
Yes, I
my
played in
gosh.
wedding bands.
Please send me pictures. I would love to see what you were wearing. All right, we're moving down the line here. Antonio moved
Go for
back
it,
to
yeah.
North America to star in TV series Bomb Girls alongside Meg Tilly and Ice with Donald Sutherland. How's that?
Yeah, not in kind of in that order, but not that close together. Bomb Girls
Okay.
was like around 2012. We shot
Okay.
in Toronto. It was an amazing experience. We got to work with really cool directors and learned about a piece of Canadian history that predated America's history in World War II, which is not something that you learn about very often. And as being a fellow Canadian, you understand that, Canada's involvement in the war before even the Americans were involved, and kind of what our, where Rosie the Riveter and You Can Do It and all that came from, which is the beginning of women's liberation and women's empowerment and, women in the workforce that, is basically women building bombs.
Wow.
And
And that was what your
yeah, to
series was about. Yesterday was
that's
International Bomb Building Day. I mean, Women's Day.
Women's Day. That's
Okay.
right. Yeah,
Yep.
it was. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, I think if I can find my phone here, one of the photos that I intended on, I don't even know where I put it, intended on posting was actually Rosie the Riveter, because there's no better person. I don't know where it is. There's no better person that, or no better idea of Women's Day than that whole idea that was created.
Wow.
The empowerment of women in World War II building bombs. I mean, that was something that they did for the bomb for the effort. While the boys were away, the women were working and
Right.
creating, making the bombs.
Yeah.
You know, so the series is about that. It was an incredible experience. Loved working with Meg Tilly and the whole crew. Adrian Mitchell was one of the developers of that. It was just really, really great. Then the other show was Ice with Donald Sutherland that you mentioned. That was several years later. I got to play a DA, district attorney, yeah, and it was a really great experience. Shot in my hometown, and that's really about it. What else you got there on that list?
Well,
Anything else?
what's next? Yeah, is Blood and Treasures, and then Brush with Love, Love Under
Right.
the Olive Tree, which you produced Love Under the Olive Tree, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
With our
yeah.
buddy Ryan. So you have a really impressive uh, resume, like really, really diverse and really, really impressive things that you've done. I'm really impressed with
Thank you. I don't see it as the impressiveness that you're sort of putting forth here. I understand that maybe it seems like that is,
dude.
but when you when you lived it and you just do it,
Mm,
you know, like even my time in restaurants, like, okay, that was a foray. I forayed into restaurants. It was an environment that I became very closely associated with in Italy, going out effectively every night to eat and understanding what my own true tastes were, what I liked to taste.
I see.
Um, and when I came back to North America, I wasn't able to find that, so I tried to create it. And in doing so, I created a spot where it was, kind of a mom and pop style Italian um, cafe that had a very limited menu, but the things that were on the menu were very good. And that's all I wanted from that. And a place to call home, to be able to, this is my spot, and you
Hmm.
were there when you
I
actually came to my
loved
spot.
it.
So you,
Yeah, we had the lasagna and some amazing dessert. Restaurant business tough though. Like there's,
yeah,
you obviously discovered, and it.
yeah.
But I'm still waiting for you to start another one because that was stinking delicious. I loved
Thank you.
that food.
I'd say it was tough. The toughest part of the restaurant business for me as an owner was finding really great staff,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
because they're um, it's the restaurant is a lot of times is a cash business, and if you're not there to count every penny coming in, you end up with leaks. Things, money goes
yeah.
missing,
And
things go
you had
missing.
some big leagues, didn't you?
Yeah, I had some big leaks, and I brought a couple from Toronto, that was an Italian couple, to help run the restaurant, and they ended up having different ideas of uh, what an ideal situation for them was. I gave them an ideal situation, and they thought that maybe they could push that a little farther, and I ended up closing down and just not doing it again, because it's tough to find really great people.
Yeah.
People steal, and just like, if you lose one steak out of your fridge, or if the staff is eating the fish when they could be eating the whatever else that's a less expensive dish, um you know plus
Your
when it's mom and
margins.
pop,
Yeah, your
there's
margins
no
just
margins.
right.
So you end up just paying for people to eat at your restaurant, and it was fine for a while, but it's like,
not not the best business model. So
no, call it promotion, but
Antonio, who said this? This is a quote. I didn't really think I was going to be living out of a suitcase through my entire 20s and into my 30s, but that's how I've kind of been. I got more damaged luggage than anyone I know. Who said that?
the damaged luggage is, I'm the damaged luggage, apparently. uh that's funny. I don't ever remember saying that. I probably did say it.
Maybe it's a
And
line.
I
Maybe it's a line from a movie or something.
honestly, like, I don't know where these quotes come from. I likely said it. It might have been in an interview in Italy. I believe I also said that I was like a Sardinian goat farmer at one point. um
Which
there's a
is
lot of things,
which is true.
which is true. um there were a lot of things. One of the reasons why I even stopped interviewing is because there wasn't a one-on-one with Freedom Alchemist. Paul Greene wasn't sitting there going like, I want to find out about you, not about what we think you are, but I want to learn about you.
Right.
And I remember the one of the most incredible questions I was ever asked, and I'm going to ask you this question right now. When you were a child, where did you like to hide? Where was your spot?
That's easy. A treehouse. We had a treehouse built, so I'd run up in there, and even if there might be bees up there or something, I just changed my name to Paul Greene. It should say Paul Greene
Yeah.
on there. Thanks for the heads up. Subtle.
Oh, there it is.
And helpful. Probably a treehouse, I would say, or under the when we built a fort under the pool table with like blankets and then put cushions under there.
That's it. That's the spot. I didn't feel it was greenhouse. I didn't feel it was greenhouse. Partially because you said a greenhouse and not my greenhouse, or the greenhouse, or rather the treehouse.
Treehouse. Well, it was a really
Yeah.
special tree fort, kind of that was up in the trees, and we built other
Yes.
ones.
Yes.
But earlier it was always under the pool table. We just put blankets and make my own house under there.
Yeah. Yeah. See,
What?
mine
What?
was very similar to that.
Yeah. Where?
Yeah. It was okay. So when the dinner table, and there's chairs, and that space between the chair and the table is just like an empty void.
Yeah.
I would tuck myself in there, and if you're walking by the table, you don't see feet,
I've done that
right?
too.
Right.
I've totally done that.
And I was asked this question. I thought to myself, it's not about not wanting to interview. It's about the interviewer either selling out and asking you, oh, well, we saw you were walking with this girl, are you together? Do you have a, or you said that you were, you liked Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean. That was based on a gay character. And it's just like, Antonio, gay icon. Da, da, da. It's like, but that's not me.
That was one of my questions. Was about Johnny Depp, and I heard you liked him as a character, and that he was a gay based on a gay character. That was one of my questions.
That is, yeah. So, well, I actually said that in an interview. I said, they said, who do you, like, and I just watched Pirates of the Caribbean. And
this is a true story.
This is a true story. Yeah, this is a true story.
Tell me more.
And I
Tell me more.
just watched Pirates of the Caribbean, and so the interviewer said, what's an actor that you really like the performance of? And I said, well, I just watched Pirates of the Caribbean, and I really loved Johnny Depp's performance, right? And she was like, oh, do you know that was he had based that character on a gay icon,
No, on Pepe Le Pew. He based it on the cartoon skunk.
whatever it
And who
was.
cares if that was based on it? What's wrong with this person?
Ex-
Was this in
okay,
an
this is what I
interview?
said. Yes, it was an interview. So instead of just asking me, like, I said, my life is interesting. If you just dig around, you're going to find this interesting stuff. Like, I'll tell you pretty much everything, you know? So just
Mm,
ask me the questions. But they didn't find that it was enough. So then they have to write, gay icon, it's just like, why do you have to make stuff up? Just ask me the questions. People, if they're watching the interview, and certainly if they get this far, it's because they want to know stuff about you,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Otherwise, they
yeah,
turn it
yeah,
off and they go do something else, which is totally fine. I do
yeah,
it all the time. But other people will watch it right to the very end because people are interesting, you
yeah,
know? And I think
yeah.
that you're interesting.
I think you're interesting, and I find there's so many things I didn't know about you, Antonio. Like I always, when we spend time together, I can always count on having a really good time, like laughing, sometimes laughing till we hurt.
Yes.
And you're not inappropriate here, but like in person, you say kind of things where I'm like not inappropriate, but like you're crafty and you're like you're naughty. Like you say naughty things, and I'm like, did Antonio just say that? You're being very unnaughty here, but it's I do think that your story and your life is really interesting, not just to somebody who's an actor, but also it's such a journey that everyone's life is so unique, and it's this hero's journey, right? There's these You leave what's comfortable, just like in the hero's journey, which is pretty very much Star Wars or Hunger Games, and then you leave what's familiar, and then you leave the land that you know, and then you're in a foreign land, and in that land are dragons, or like the guy with the knife, and then you meet a mentor, or the girlfriend in your case, that uh in my case Jesus, that you learn from, and then that has to die in a way, and then you're reborn, and you have to slay your own dragons, and then you come back to the land that you're from with all these stories and all these tools, and
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite parts of the hero's journey. But like
I love that.
you're a father, and so what is the biggest surprise for you being a dad right now? Like you're a young father, your kids are quite young, and what are their names if you want to share? You don't have to share that, but and what's the best kind of part about you being a father right now?
Oh, well, you know, when I had kids, I figured like the most important thing was just trying not to screw up, trying not to screw them up. You know what I mean? Like you want to do right by them. Priorities shifted, certainly. Um, I never thought I would be able to dedicate as much time as I do to my children to anything. Certainly, if I had dedicated an eighth of that time to my career, I probably would be in a much. I'd probably be giving the interview right now, as opposed to I'd probably be the host. Uh, but no, I think that I really wasn't prepared. I don't think you're ever ready to have children. Number one, I think
Right.
that children it's a complete gift, and everyone's journey is different. And when it happens, you can take it one of two ways. You can accept that journey, that challenge, like choose your own adventure. Do you accept? Yes, I
Mm.
do. And you enter that new way of life, thinking, loving, being. And then there's the other part where it's just like, the complete refusal of it, or just trying to avoid it for as long as possible. It's like, for me, it was like immediately like sell the sports cars, like get right. Okay, how do I get as much family here as possible? How do I make this as family friendly as possible? Everything in my life. So I stopped, slowed down traveling, certainly slowed down a lot, and really kind of picked up the dad role, and I don't really talk. I don't really post a lot about my children. I have
Okay.
been a little bit more. I don't really talk a lot about them because um, there are things in my life that I I don't really divulge so much information because
Yeah.
they're mine. You know what I mean?
I
And
get
they're
that.
personal to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I want to open up. I want to be more exposed and allow people who are interested to come into my life and to understand what I do and who I am as a father and as a human, as a man, But there's an interesting thing where it's just like, how much time am I willing to dedicate, and what potential risk am I putting my family into, right? And for every time there's an opportunity to show something amazing about your life, there's also an opportunity for bad stuff to happen. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Whatever it is. And I just don't really want to expose people I love to the internet.
Hmm.
It was very, it's been, well, it's been great for me, but at times it was very difficult, cruel, you know, hurtful. Um, Certainly for people around me, sometimes for me as well. I saw it really break people down. I think that I'm an anti-bullying advocate. I think that bullying is one of the worst things that could potentially happen to a child, but to anybody, certainly to a child, because that age is a very tender age. And putting your things out there to the world and having a bunch of people that are masked and behind a computer, you can't control what they say. Now, I'm fortunate to have people that follow me that actually they love me and they love things that I do and things that I put out there. So I feel like a lot of love coming, and that's, for me, that's what I want. That's my whole reason for anything outwardly that I do. It's like, hey, this is something I love. If you love it too, great. But if there is ever some like backlash or people, I'm not the kind of person where I just go like, well, there's good, there's bad. It's just like, you know what? If you don't want to say anything nice, just don't say anything, or just go away. You know what I mean? Now, it
Yes.
hasn't been a huge problem. I've seen it, right? And I don't want to
I
expose.
get it. You want to
Yeah,
minimize. Yeah, 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 yeah. And so
yeah, you get
why the bullying thing? Why does that matter to you?
it. Well, I
Were
feel
you
like,
were you bullied or were you like exposed to
nope,
it some way?
no,
No.
I was not bullied. I guess, growing up in the town where I grew up, and I just witnessed things that were kind of hard, and there's that tough love aspect of just like, well, people are gonna say mean things, and you just, you know, but there was like a lot of, like racial cruelty and remarks and things like that, certainly when they're done in, you can either accept something and just go, this is stuff that happens, or you could speak against it. And the bigger thing is to speak against it, to rise up and say, this is not okay, you know and I think that, there are times in my life when I just remain silent, and I will forever be challenged in by that idea. Like, we cannot remain silent, we have to speak against it, because if enough people speak against it, that will bring awareness and will stop it. I People in my family were bullied. People I loved very much were bullied. uh, and hearing the other side of it was very, very damaging, to the young mind. You know what I'm saying?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I'm
Did you
with
have any problems with bullying at all?
Not really. I was in the athletic group, and
Yeah.
there's quite a code of. I
Yeah.
mean, we initiated the always the fresh. We always initiated and I went through the initiation process, but it was like drink a bunch of water and maybe drink too much water till you throw up or something. But hazing, I guess. But it was light hazing, light. Our coach was really mad at them that did it to us, and it was like we
Yeah.
just, it was like very mild. But you know,
Yeah.
I'm engaged to someone who's the feistiest Justice League, or she's like the head of the Justice Department. Like if she sees injustice in the world or the underdog, like she is like it politically activates her. She's just like that is not okay. And she's like some people are wired that way.
Mm.
I'm a bit of a pacifist in some ways. Like I'm not
Yeah.
an activist. I would definitely be someone who maybe would do a hunger fast, like a 40-day hunger fast for bullying over marching in the street with fist.
I understand.
It's just everyone's wired a bit differently. On mine, like having peacefulness in my home and in my heart is of utmost priority. So I will try to find a peaceful way to get a result. But
Yeah.
sometimes I understand that you really have to stand up against, especially bullies. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's become very common, I think, in our world, especially in the last bit. But I got some rapid fire questions for you. And believe it or not, I know we had some fun pre-roll, but we're already at over 90 minutes of us having this
Wow.
conversation. So it
Wow. I
goes
feel like
really,
we haven't even like cracked the surface.
no, there's so much I want to ask you, which is like why I do these longer conversations, because I get taken into Rome with you, and I get taken into the Parco Sempione, and like there's these moments that I'd love to expand on, but I think that what the fans are also really interested is when are we going to do another Anything for Love movie with Erica Christensen, and I
That'd be
think
amazing.
we have met with Erica together, and of course our good buddy Ryan Murphy, the producer, and and Barbara Kerr, who wrote it, and everyone's on board. It's just a matter of finding the time and get everyone to do it. Where my character gets married to Erica's character. I think her name was Catherine or something. But
Catherine, that's right. Yeah.
and then you would come, and then you would come back to haunt us and give her a passionate kiss in the parking lot. But we
Did
got
I
to do
kiss
that.
her in that movie?
You smacked her like really aggressively, remember? Uh,
Smacked her
and
or
then
kissed her?
and she had smacked her with a kiss, and then you had her
Oh,
lips all over your face because you were like, "Mwah." She was about to break up with you, and you just kissed her or something out in front of that building that was supposed to represent Chicago.
I remember very clearly, and I remember that it was that the director on that was very excited to have both of us working in his movie. And I actually could not wait to work with both you and Erica. And I knew that you and I going out for a lot of the same roles we go out for, it'd be rare that we work together. So this was a time when I could take a secondary role and I could also create it something interesting, as in bring a little comic relief to it, because as the lead character in those movies, it's very difficult to bring the comedy aspect. But as a secondary character, the character can actually be funny. So there was in that movie, I know that there was some work that I had done that was very specific in trying to bring a comedic element.
You did. You were great, and you played the villain, but you were also like really kind of goofy, and I love that scene between us where you're like trying to buy her from me, and I'm like, she's not for
That's right.
sale. It's like how much,
That's
and
right.
that's
Yeah.
kind of the turning point. So rapid fire, just a few fan questions, and
Edit.
then we'll wrap this up because I know you're on double dad duty, and but this has been awesome, man. It's been awesome. We've never. What I love is you and I've never really done this. Like never, not at
No.
this level. We go deep in certain areas, but this is a whole different kind of thing. I'm excited about your discovering Jesus and God, and like there's a whole world to unpack there, because I feel like I've discovered a lot of the pitfalls along the way of like guilt and shame and punishment, and like how to avoid
Yes.
having that relationship to God be one of love and not of fear. And I spent my whole life in fear, guilt, shame paradigm, and it's only in the last 10, 15 years that I've been uncracking that, and then parenting from a place of love, not guilt, shame, or fear, which is
I love that.
which is like I've had this big awakening with God, but it's also how I parent, and because I was parented and our parents were my parents were parented with this is the way, like the Mandalorians, this is the way, and this is just because I say so, and there's no emotional intelligence needed in our parents and our dads. Maybe the women for sure, but not our dads and our grandfathers. They didn't talk about their feelings, but now our kids, my son's 17, I needed to step up the game of parenting. Not just putting a roof over a head and providing for my son isn't enough. He needs more. And so that evolution of the relationship with God, for me, and shifting from fear to love, has been a profound thing in my parenting style too.
Love that. I love that.
Yeah, buddy. I'm doing 52 Ways to Be the Dad You Wish You Had, the book, and I'll interview you for. I have to interview like 35 dads for a portion of the book, so I'll definitely ask you like just a simple like here's a few questions that'll
Absolutely.
and if they're good, will end up in the book.
Ooh, I love that.
Ooh, it's almost done.
I want to be published, Paul Greene.
You will. You are published. Okay, this is from Miss Jackie Says. He plays creepy guys so well, but also romantic leading guys really well. But then he seems like a really funny guy in real life and could do some comedy gold. This is from Miss Jackie Says. Like wow. You and he should be in the new Bosom Buddies. LOL. I know what that is. So what is your favorite type of character to tackle?
Wow, she just summed it up. I wish she was in casting or a producer. I would say, like my absolute most favorite thing to play is comedy. People don't really see me as very I don't know why. I mean, like I feel like I'm always cracking jokes. And, one of the reasons I think you touched on me being slightly inappropriate at times is that, I have to be very careful because, the comedic license, I feel very comedic, but people don't see me immediately as comedic unless you get to know me. And they're like, oh, he's funny. He's not he's not an a-hole. He's actually a really funny guy. But I just feel the comedy within me. It's a continual thing. And it's just like, I allow myself the artistic license to go a little bit beyond and to explore those areas. So if I was paid for that, or if I was able to do comedy, I would be doing that a lot more. Certainly even stand-up was something that I was very much considering because I feel like there's all this funny in me.
Gold.
Maybe that's just me.
There's
it's like
this those hills.
Wait till people hear this. It's like nobody cares about your jokes, Cupo. But yeah, no, my favorite characters to play are the funny characters. However, I excel at creepy characters. Sure, I'll take it. Maybe what would the other ones? Romantic.
She didn't say you excelled at creepy more than the romantic. She's equal. She this is Miss Jackie Says thinks you play romantic leading guys really well too. So
look, Jackie. I mean, look, an actor that's able to do more than one thing is certainly a good thing. And, I think that every character we play are facets of our own personalities. That being said that, it's certainly more of a stretch to play a character that's creepy. However, they're fun to play too. I enjoy anytime I get to go on camera and to just explore the world of another character. And oftentimes they require research and there's just things that we put in our bank and just go like, hey, one day I'm going to have that character and I'm going to pull this thing out that I saw someone doing that was very creepy, and I just log it, I bank it, and I pull it out later. So anyway, thank you. I appreciate that, Ms. Jackie.
Yeah, she's a big fan. And then awesome. Jean Burgess says this is going to be fun. These guys, it'll be our quarantine reunion. You all made me laugh so much on that day. That was a really funny day. I should try to pull up a link for that in the show notes of our you came to my apartment in Vancouver.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly different than today's interview. I think, people might see us together. This is why I think that we, if we co-hosted something, it could be really funny because there is a banter, that I feel like we have in a tempo when it's off the cuff. This is a little bit more, I mean, it's certainly not structured, but a little bit more in the fact that we're just sitting down and having a conversation, like a one-on-one kind of heart to heart. And I love that because I'm able to talk about things that are personal to me without feeling like it's a performance, or just chatting, as if we would chat if we went for coffee and we weren't so goofy that we're like, pulling out songs and talking about experiences and whatever the case is. It's just in a different way.
Well, the Zoom keeps you and I from being giddy because when we get together, we actually get giddy and ridiculous. Like physically, this Zoom is kept when we're in the same room, we like you're punching me in the chest, in the pecs, knowing I just did push-ups, or you're pulling my back of my hair. Like you are a shyster in person, and it's exciting when
Firecracker, come on.
you're a firecracker. Yeah,
It's
you are.
exciting
You
stuff,
always
Paul.
tickle
It's
my
exciting.
ribs. You always like grab my ribs with your knuckles. I'm like, hey, those take off. Leave my ribs alone.
You
You
love it, Paul. You love it, Paul Greene. You love
yeah,
a knuckle to the ribs.
it's too. Who does it? Who doesn't? How many Hallmark movies have you been in?
Oh gosh, I think I did. To this year was I believe, my fifth.
Okay, that's
It hasn't been a whole lot.
Susan Benson's wondering. And do you have any upcoming ones coming up? That's what upcoming. That's
I
what
don't. The
upcoming
last one I did,
upcoming means.
upcoming, coming up.
Yes.
The last one I did was A Glenbrook Christmas, which is a Christmas movie. So if you haven't seen that, Susan, please check it out. It was Autumn Reeser and me, and we had an amazing time. Autumn is like a piece of my heart is taken away every time she leaves. But she's an amazing human, and we had a lot of really, really great times. And that movie was cool. And I got to act, which is something that I'm doing. I feel like I'm doing less of. Maybe it's just because I'm developing more and kind of just trying to, tell more stories uh, from behind the lens. But being in front of it certainly was was nice, and to get back and just like bang the board, so to speak.
What's next for you? Is producing more, telling stories, maybe eventually directing? Like what's next for Mr. Cupo?
I thought about all those things. I feel like producing, developing is a piece of me that just needed to come out. And I love the development process. I love helping people find what they need. I love that whole part of pre-production where we're just kind of working as a team, and that in 2 days the actors are going to come in and they're going to bring all their chops, and they're going to be saying their lines, and you're just sort of getting everything set and ready for the magic to happen on camera. I love that. I love going department to department and talking to them and finding out what they need and helping out. And I love at the end of the night walking through the empty parking lot that we just spent 7 hours shooting in and scouring the grounds for lost walkie talkies. I love every aspect of it.
Wow.
So it's just I don't know what it is. It's
That
something
is
between, yeah,
something between what? Sorry?
it's something between um uh it's like the adventures of camping, but with like being able to have like an artistic canvas that's just like completely free. Now, I don't do our creative work happens before, so the canvas is kind of being drawn as we go along. But you're there and you have all these departments and people that look up to you and they depend on you for answers, and you're bringing what you know, and you understand that people need the guidance, and you have a lot of those answers, and if you don't, you will get them. Oftentimes we rely on our network executives or whoever else to we confide in people, right, to
Yeah.
bring the answers. And then we bring back the word of the network. We say, this is how things are going, and you're working with people, and it's one-on-one. It's not what actors do generally. We get that in very small blips where you're working with another actor. The scene is 1 minute and 30 seconds. Go. And you get to do that 6 times and you love it, and you want to do it 20 more times, but you don't have time.
Right.
Well, as a producer, I get to do that with every single department, every single day, for the all of pre-production, all of the shoot, and post-production.
That's interesting. I've never
Right?
thought of it that way. I always think of the producers and everybody working so hard, and I'm like, "Whew, I'm glad I get to go home." And like, the director, I want to direct as well, but I like, a director puts in 3 times the hours of an actor, and often isn't paid as well. And it's like, so,
Yeah.
I'm a freedom junkie. I'm a freedom junkie. So acting allows me the most freedom. And where
That is that. Yeah.
when I look at
Yeah.
producing and directing, I'm like, there's so much less freedom there that maybe I'll do that later when, I'm not required to be with still a dad to my kid and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll always
I
be his
know.
dad, but meaning he's in the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that you loved producing in that way. That I don't get it. Like,
Right.
but I can tell in your excitement that it's awesome for you.
Yeah, it truly is awesome. And look, I mean, directing has been, I work very, very closely with directors as an actor and a producer. I understand the process.
Sure.
Is it something that I may do in the future? Maybe. I'm certainly interested in what the director does. I feel like, the more involved I get, I mean, I certainly stay out of directing on movies that I'm working on, because there's every department there for a reason, right? You hire people, you bring people on, you work with people that are proficient at what they do. However, what they do is very, very interesting. And because they're working so closely with actors, and they have the liberty to go up and speak to the actor and say, look, this is what we're looking for, or when you come in, or when she's saying this to you, how does it make you feel? Show me that. Those very simple things that a director may have said to you at some point, that has brought out that emotional experience on
Mm.
camera, and that later, when is revealed to have done its work, it's like, wow, what the director told me had an impact, because you could read it on screen. I love that. I love that
Wow.
a simple word can translate to an emotion, that will translate to another actor, that will translate on camera.
Hmm.
That is another process that is beautiful and magical.
I love that, and so many of the people watching this are huge fans of the movies that you make, and also, and it's such a magic show what goes on there. They just see what's on the screen. So this sort of lift up the curtain, like how did these things actually get made? And it's really like birthing a child. Like it's like the conception, and then there's all these processes, and then it's like has a delivery date and has to be ready, and it's like all it's such a I'm not in love with that whole side of that process, just to be
Mm.
honest. Like I admire people that have that a brain for that, but I just give me a playground and I will play on it, but I do not
Yeah,
want to be the one that built the playground.
I totally get it. I
Right.
totally get it. Yeah, I mean, that's a thing. It's like everyone should be doing exactly what they are meant to do. And
Yeah.
I've been in a position where I was able to sit around on set and spot a director, or sit around on set and ask a producer three more questions, but I opted to go home. There's been that time where it was like, would you rather just go home right now or sit around for the rest of the day? And it's like, see ya. You know, now my comfort is just understanding, and being, I can sit there all day, and I can spend 4 hours after work, and 4 hours before work, and be the first one to show up, and bring a smile, and that energizes me. It's
I
okay.
love
You
that.
can work, you can work three times more than everybody. And I've worked with directors even that have done that. They are working 3 to 5 times more than anybody, certainly more than actors.
Sure.
And they're bringing a good attitude, and they're bringing, they're washed and ready to work every day. You know what I mean? It's like they're not just slumming it. They've got
Right.
ideas. They've got boards, notes, and all kinds of things, photographs, and whatever it is that's going to help them or their team.
So what is next for you then? What's coming? I can tell you, I think you're going to be very successful as a producer, by the way, just because of the way you just described all of that. I've never even thought in those terms around that. So tell me, like, what's next for you, and then where can people like kind of find out more and make sure they follow you and stuff?
Well, I don't really know what's next for me, other than just parenting. However, I am doing a show right now, called The Scriptures. I think I can say it now because it's come out on the internet, and it's with John Cena, and it's been a really, really great, fun show to play on. And that's really all I can say so far. It's probably coming out in the next few months. I don't know, but it's called The Scriptures, or Peacemaker. I don't know. Probably The Scriptures, however. But there's that. Parenting is a big thing, and I will continue to do that. And the last thing is, where people can find me is probably on Instagram at Antonio Cupo. I'm not really active on Twitter. Certainly not as active anymore on Facebook. Whatever the remnants are floating around from 2006. Great, but nothing really that new. But my life through pictures is probably a little bit more interesting, I guess. And then, you know, that's really about it. You know, we'll see what's next, but it's going to be certainly more development, more producing, and hopefully some little acting gigs here and there just to keep things interesting and fresh.
Well, we have to do anything for love too, which is like anything for marriage or something. I want to work with you again, and I love Ryan, one of your producing partners, and I think and I know the fans have been asking for us to do a lot of things together as well, and I just, you know, I really hope and I believe that will happen, because I enjoy my days when I get to hang out with you, buddy.
I really do too, man. I really do too. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you in person, giving you a hug. In the meantime, thank you so much, Mr. Paul Greene. Your questions were incredible. I would say this is one of my most memorable interviews yet. Also because it is the most recent interview I've done.
Yeah, it's you're in this moment. Like, I'm still in the interview and I remember it. This is
exactly, yeah.
You're like, you remember
and
you
forgot. No, just kidding.
You didn't forget where you were, which is unique. Yeah, no, it's been fun. It's been fun. Thanks for being honest. And if you're the listeners, avoid that park and avoid anyone. That's one of my lessons taken away from you. And if your name is Jeremy,
oh, you know exactly what we're talking about.
All right, Antonio. Thank you for being my guest.
Thank you, and thank you for, you know, all of your fans as well. The support's been amazing, and it's really great just to be able to connect with people on this level and have you know, this level of honesty coming across, and just having a good old-fashioned Canadian conversation. So lots of love to you and the family. Say hi to your partner and wonderful skateboarder of a son. Last time I saw him was at the skate park in Santa Monica or West LA, and he was just killing it. He's incredible on a skateboard, so congrats on that. You got yourself a little champion there for sure. Thanks. Thank you, buddy.
Until next time, my friend.
Bye, guys. Peace. Ciao.
Just hang on a second.
Yeah. It was actually.
Yours were